What's up, everyone? Your boy Stevekaneki back here again to bring you guys another raw first impressions of It Chapter 2 that dropped September 7th of 2019 this year. And going into this movie, I was very excited. You know, the marketing technique, I felt that it was poorly done, honestly. We only had maybe 2 trailers. The first trailer was very cryptic, which I'm completely fine with, but the second trailer honestly felt that they didn't try. The marketing for this movie, it made me feel that they didn't have as much confidence as Chapter 1 because the adults were portrayed to be, I guess, still scared of Pennywise, but it's been 27 years, so the fact that they're still afraid of certain things and Pennywise is able to tap into their fears and make them look within themselves, it's supposed to feel more immersive to the audience. But as I was watching those trailers, I felt that the movie was honestly going to be a disappointment after a while, just based on the marketing, and I wasn't a big fan of the marketing. So that's issue number 1 I had with the movie, going into it blindly. So we all know the story. Mike Hanlon decides to stay behind as the Losers Club move on with their lives. It's been 27 years and Pennywise is back up to no good. Somehow in the movie, in Chapter 2, Mike finds the Losers Club without any kind of contact with them. He just pulls out his cell phone and starts dialing numbers and tracks them all down. It shows a quick montage of him calling them up out of the blue, making them stop whatever they're doing and saying, hey, you made an oath, you gotta come back to Derry because Pennywise is back. He's back up to no good and we need to kill him, we need to stop him, you need to fulfill your oath and keep your promise. As an audience member going into this movie, I knew that was gonna happen, right? I knew that there was gonna be some cheap way for them to figure out how to call the kids back to Derry. I just didn't expect them to actually do that. It felt very weak how he just pulls out his cell phone, and it's a smartphone at that, and he doesn't look them up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, no type of social media. He just starts dialing numbers. It's like he had their numbers saved, but he hasn't spoken to these people in 27 years. So how the hell is he finding them? I never understood that about the movie. But they come back to Derry and they basically have to figure out how to combat Pennywise. They have to remember, and that's pretty much the bulk of the movie, is them trying to exact revenge on Pennywise because he's back up to no good in the town of Derry. It Chapter 2 opens up very dark, just like Chapter 1. Chapter 1 showed the death of Georgie, just like the miniseries with Tim Curry years ago. You know, Chapter 2 opens up with this scene at a carnival, and basically there's this gay couple there, and that was one of my biggest issues with the movie right off the bat, because they start to use one of the most disgraceful words known to mankind to make the audience feel bad for this couple. And I completely understand it, but it was just poorly done, because in Chapter 1 they never emphasized that the town of Derry is against homosexuality, and they bring that up later on in the movie to make you rationalize and empathize with the reason why you're supposed to take this scene so seriously when you watch it technically again, or the same type of circumstances again later on in the film. And I'll touch base on that in a minute. But as the film progressed on, guys, I start to get more and more disappointed. The first 45 minutes of this movie, I felt it was solid. But once it traversed into the middle chunk, the second act, that's when the movie started to remind me too much of Avengers Endgame, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, believe me when I say I hate to compare this movie to Avengers Endgame. I really do. But as the middle chunk of this movie just kept progressing on, I could not stop thinking about it because it reminded me so much of the main mission in Endgame. You know, in Endgame, they basically go back in time to go get the Infinity Stones to fix the past in order to restore the future, right? It's the same concept in It Chapter 2. Mike tells the kids or the adults at the dinner table as they're having their reunion that in order to remember Pennywise the clown, you have to go back and retrace your steps and remember why he tormented you so much as a kid. And I said, oh, here we go. Like, we're going to use the same movie tropes as far as, I guess, time travel in a way, or we're going to learn more character development. Like, this is why the movie is 3 hours, and it starts to get really, really boring. The movie is rated R. It's supposed to be a horror movie. Once the kids get separated as kids in Chapter 1, it was scary because all their fears made sense as kids. In Chapter 2, when they're adults, they're afraid of the same thing, and I was just like, you haven't got over this fear, and it's been over 27 years, and you haven't thought about this in over, 2 decades, and you're still afraid of this stuff. I just couldn't take it seriously as an eyes of an adult, and I just had a problem with that the whole time watching the second act. Don't get me wrong, most of the relics that the kids have to go back and find make sense. The cinematography in each scene when they're by themselves, it was pretty well done overall, but the execution on the scary scenes were poorly flat. They go into this dark, scary, spooky place, and there's this dark, very immersive theme song that's playing in the background. The camera pans to the left, it shows you something, and all of a sudden pans back, and you see Pennywise, or you see some sort of demented demon or monster, and it's supposed to be a jump scare. It's the same sequence over and over and over again, and it eventually got boring. It reminded me of Endgame once again, because once they get all the relics and they put them in this little cauldron that Mike has, that he explains to Bill's character about how to beat Pennywise, I said, okay, this is basically you guys' Infinity Gauntlet. This is the same concept of Avengers Endgame. You see what I'm saying? The movie just basically just copies the same plot. I felt like this script in the second act got pushed around by different writers because they didn't know what to do to make the adults more interesting to connect with their counterparts as kids, and I just wasn't having it. Most of the time I'm against, pointless mountains of exposition. I hate when studios go the route of spoon feeding us information that we already know as audience members. We paid for the ticket, we're watching the movie, let us experience it. Why are you telling me something that I should already know or expect? They try to do this in a cool way by having a little flashback sequence about what Pennywise came from or what he is, but I felt the execution on it fell flat once again, just because the way it was done. It's this scene where he looks like a dragon attacking a group of Native Americans. They say in order to kill him, you must sacrifice the relics inside the cauldron, mix them together, and you make some sort of Pennywise antidote or whatever it was. I don't even really remember, because that part of the movie I was not falling asleep, but I was extremely bored. Now that we've gotten some simple things out of the way, I want to talk about some things I actually liked. The casting for this movie was absolutely perfect. The adult counterparts versus the kids, it was good. It's like they made these guys hang out all day, every day in order to get to understand each other. It's like the adult versions of the characters watched Chapter 1 or they read the book. I don't know, but I just felt that we were basically just watching the perfection of, of a 27-year-old version of a younger kid that we just watched 2 years ago, and they did an absolute great job in that, so I gotta give them credit. The problem I have with the casting in this movie is I don't think the studio ever thought that the kids in actual real life were gonna get older or their voices were gonna change. I don't know what it was, but there is this scene where they show a flashback that never happened in Chapter 1. It just felt like they just shoehorned it in there, where the kids are in the clubhouse in the woods and they're hanging out. It's another day in the summertime, they're hanging out. The kid Eddie, his voice was like 3 pitches higher than what it used to be. It's like they tried to use this ADR technology with sound or something, and he was just talking, immensely faster than what he usually does in Chapter 1. It just didn't sound right. The CGI de-aging effects that they put on these kids' faces is absolutely terrible. It was, monotonous to look at and watch. Like, my eyes started hurting looking at these gross faces of makeup trying to convince me, to make me think that, okay, like, this is supposed to be a flashback scene. But it didn't look like that, because the kids don't even look like that in real life anymore. I don't know who in the studio didn't think that, hey, like, it's been 2 years in real life. Like, these kids aren't gonna look the same. I don't blame the studio for not thinking about that. But you've done interviews. Like, you've seen the kids in meetings. You've given them the scripts. You know what I'm saying? You've had face-to-face interaction with these kids in real life. No one in the studio thought that, man, you don't look the same. Like, so what are we gonna do? Oh, we're gonna CGI and de-age them and make them look younger. It's only gonna be for a few minutes. No one's gonna notice. But believe me, guys, you notice. My solution to this was, you basically take the Avengers Endgame and Infinity War route. I don't know if you guys know this, but both of those films were filmed back to back. And a lot of the actors didn't know which part was taking place to keep it a surprise and keep spoilers from getting leaked out. So the way you fix It Chapter 2 or the entire remake of It is you either film both films, Chapter 1 and 2, back to back, or you film the entire movie in one big sequence. You could have just made one 3-hour movie with a 5-minute intermission or something like that. Hell, we sat through Avatar and it's 3 hours. We sat through Titanic and the movie's well over 2 hours. We sat through Dark Knight Rises and it's over 2 hours and 30 minutes. There's a lot of movies out there that are over 2 hours and 30 minutes. They're different plots and different genres. But my point is, how hard is it to make a movie for that long? You know what I'm saying? It just didn't add up. It was poorly done, and I completely blame the studio for not paying attention and or taking the utmost effort to fix that. Early in the video, I mentioned something about the LGBT community, taking a huge L in this film in the opening sequence. And they try to bring it up in Richie Tozer's flashback, where he goes to an arcade and he finds a token. That's his relic. His relic is a token, right? And it didn't make sense to me, because in Chapter 1, Richie only goes to the arcade once him and Bill get into a physical altercation after the first time fighting Pennywise on Neibolt Street. So the Losers Club at that point disbanded. They're no more. They only come back to get Richie once Pennywise kidnaps Beth, when her dad basically, tries to assault her, or he puts his hands on her. So Richie's in the arcade, and they throw in this flashback retcon scene that just totally ruined his character. I'm not against the LGBT community or in any way, shape, or form. I just hate that when things aren't represented in the right way or presented in film, video games, media, to the proper representation. This is not the way you represent a community in this movie. They try to make Richie Tozer's character gay by having him have an intimate moment with another little boy in the arcade by having them touch hands. Richie makes eye contact with him in a very intimate way, and it just didn't work, because once Henry Bowers enters the scene, you realize that the kid Richie's playing Street Fighter against is his cousin. Henry says, "Oh, you trying to be gay with my cousin? We don't like faggots around here, man. We don't do that stuff here in Derry." But remember earlier in the video when I mentioned that the town Derry looks down upon homosexuality? This is the reassuring way that they try to make you remember that scene later on in the film. You see what I'm saying now, guys? This was poorly done, because Richie never gave any kind of inclination, no kind of clue that he's gay. So therefore, they try to shoehorn it in as him always having something for men as a kid. But even in the miniseries, he grows up and gets married. It just doesn't work for his character. They even try to do something with Henry Bowers to make him more vicious in this scene, but they never mentioned it in Chapter 1. It's a retcon at its finest, and it was totally not needed. If I was to pick which Pennywise portrayal was better between Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård, I would go with Bill Skarsgård's. I just felt that he captured the true essence of Pennywise. He was very villainous, he was malicious, he did everything in the book, to me, reading about Pennywise. Like, he brought the character to life, in my opinion. Tim Curry's portrayal was great and all. He worked with the technology or the script that he could back then, and I have nothing against it. It's just if I was to pick between the two, I would go with Bill Skarsgård's. When the adults are together, the movie works phenomenally. Like, it's fun, it's good acting, the chemistry between all the characters is great. I loved it. But when they're separated, the movie feels jarringly too long. It just keeps going and going. Even when they get together to kill Pennywise in the final battle or whatever. You know, the CGI in that scene was pretty damn good. I liked it. You know, they explain what the deadlights are. They reveal the secret about the missing part of Mike's flashback scene that he showed Bill earlier in the movie. You know, they show all that stuff. But the way they kill Pennywise was an absolute cheap shot. They basically kill him with the power of friendship, guys. They call him names to make him small. And they basically just kill him that way. Like, he just self-destructs. And it was just whack. I know you guys are thinking like, man, Steve, you really ripped into this movie. You really didn't smile while reviewing it. You just totally tore this movie a new one. And you're right. I tried to like it, guys. I really did, you know. I am just so disappointed. I'm let down. If Mike Hanlon would have called me out of the blue to, you know, fulfill a 27-year-old oath, I would have hung up in his face.
Shut the fuck up, bitch.
I would have been like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, no one told you to stay behind. The film pays homage, you know, by keeping the original deaths of the Losers Club. You know, Stan dies and Eddie dies. They kept it, you know, they stayed true, and I like that. They didn't change it. There's one more thing in this movie, guys, before I bring this video to a close, that I absolutely hated, that I have to share with you, that did not make sense. The last thing in this movie that didn't make sense to me was the character of Henry Bowers and Patrick Hockstetter. You could have removed those two characters out of the movie, and it would have still been the same plot, the same story. Henry Bowers is only there for, you know, dramatic tension with the characters. He's there to kill them because basically Pennywise breaks him out of the mental institution. If you don't know why he's in the mental institution, it's because he killed his father in Chapter 1. Now, in Chapter 1, we established the fact that Henry doesn't have a driver's license. He doesn't have a car. And a lot of people, when they're watching this, are going to be like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, you remember the character Belch in the gang that hung out with Henry and his friends? That's Belch's car, the blue one, the Firebird. That's his car.
Oh shit, that's Belch Huggins' car. We should probably get out of here.
So, in Chapter 2, Patrick Hockstetter, the corpse, remember he died in Chapter 1, the corpse comes back to break Henry out of the mental institution. How does he do that? He becomes a dead Uber by Ubering him around in this car that's not his, so he can go kill the Losers Club. This did not make sense to me. I was like, how did Patrick find this car? How did they get this car? It's been 27 years. You mean to tell me that this car stayed in Derry the whole time? You see what I'm saying? It didn't make sense to me. I know I'm probably overlooking it or over analyzing it, but it was a slap in the face, guys. It was just totally garbage at that point. I was like, okay, they gave up. They did not pay attention to their own craft while watching this movie. I know a lot of you are going to be very confused by what I'm saying. Basically, to put into shorter terms, the dead corpse of Patrick Hockstetter shows up to break Henry out. They take a car that's not theirs and they go around trying to terrorize the kids. But my question is, how did they get the car back? What happened to Belch? It's been almost 30 years, bro. Come on now, you guys gotta do better than that. If I was to rate It Chapter 2 on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd give it a 3 or a 4. Nowhere near a 5. I just felt that them trying to also push the secret love interest between Richie and Eddie to prove that Richie was gay this whole time, not necessary. It loses major points for that. The character of Henry Bowers and Patrick Hockstetter, they didn't need to be in the movie. They were not necessary. They killed the vibe for me. The way they killed Pennywise, it loses points. The tension build up as far as Pennywise knowing Richie's biggest secret in the middle of the movie when they're adults, to only not reveal it at the end when he's like, I know your big secret, do you want me to tell everybody? Didn't even say it. Totally fell flat. It wasn't necessary. The movie was a complete bust. I felt like it was a waste of time, and I hope I opened you guys' eyes about this movie. I know a lot of people are going to think that the movie was amazing, they're going to love it, and I totally understand. I don't hate you for that, I don't want people to hate me for saying what I gotta say in my opinion. I just felt that the movie was a letdown. It was a major letdown. For a 2-year build-up, hype fest and hype train, it was a letdown, and I absolutely despise this movie from pretty much start to finish. That's pretty much it as far as I can remember about things that I didn't like and some things that I did like about It Chapter 2. I know 95% of this video review, it was pretty much me just being a negative Nancy, but I had to be honest with you guys. I could not just beat around the bush by just saying some simple things about why the movie didn't work for me. I've watched several reviews, I've kept my opinions to myself, I've analyzed other people's opinions, read comments, and I was like, you know what, it's time for me to get back on my grind. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna restart my YouTube dream by reviewing a movie that I took very, very seriously and getting the truth out. So it feels very good to be back behind the camera. Please hit that notification bell, ring it, everything you need to do, you already know. Like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, at Stevekaneki. The links will be down in the description below. Please share this video, guys. I know it's been a while, man, but I have a new attitude, a new motivation, a new inspiration to look at YouTube, and I'm very glad to be back and doing it again. Any type of support is greatly appreciated. I'll catch you next time with more content. This is Stevekaneki signing out, and y'all take it easy.